PTSD is one of those terms people recognize, but many of us still picture it in a really narrow way. Like it has one obvious face, one predictable set of behaviors, one clear storyline. And that misconception alone is a big reason so many people struggle quietly. Because if you don't match the stereotype, you might not even realize what you're dealing with. Or you might assume no one would believe you. Here's the reality: PTSD is often quiet. It doesn't always show up as something dramatic or easy to spot. Sometimes it looks like overthinking everything. Sometimes it's avoiding certain places or certain people, or even certain conversations. Sometimes it's trouble sleeping, feeling jumpy all the time, or feeling emotionally flat like you're there, but you're not really there. And one of the hardest versions to recognize is the person who seems fine. They go to work. They respond to texts. They take care of their kids or their partner or their responsibilities. They smile at the appropriate times. They do what needs to be done. And then they go home and feel like they're holding on by a thread. That's part of what makes PTSD so isolating. From the outside, it can look like someone is functioning. But on the inside, they're exhausted from constant tension. Their mind is scanning for danger. Their body is braced for impact. Even in safe moments, it can feel like safety is temporary. Another misconception is that trauma has to come from one single massive event. Like it only counts if it was extreme enough, violent enough, dramatic enough. But trauma doesn't always arrive in one explosion. Sometimes it's built, brick by brick, over time. Repeated stress, a toxic home, emotional neglect, ongoing criticism, abuse, living in an environment where you never really knew what version of people you were going to get day to day, or just living for years without a true sense of safety. Those experiences can train the brain and the nervous system to stay on guard. And then later, when life is calmer, your body still doesn't get the memo. It keeps running the survival program because that's what it learned to do. In that sense, PTSD isn't always one moment replaying itself. Sometimes it's years of survival finally catching up. And when it does, it can be confusing. You can feel overwhelmed and not even be able to explain why. Sometimes you're not sure what you're reacting to, only that something in you is reacting hard. Now let's talk about one of the most common beliefs that shapes how people view PTSD, that it's mainly a military condition. And to be clear, many veterans live with PTSD, and their trauma deserves real respect and real support. But PTSD does not belong to the military alone. It's not owned by one profession or one type of story. The truth is, millions of people experience PTSD. Survivors of accidents, violence, loss, abuse, medical trauma, unstable environments, people who grew up having to be on alert all the time. Trauma isn't a competition, and pain can't be ranked like it's on a scoreboard. If we only validate PTSD in one group, we accidentally silence everyone else who's suffering but thinks, maybe mine doesn't qualify. And even when someone does reach out, PTSD can be difficult to diagnose and treat. That's not because professionals don't care. It's because PTSD doesn't look the same in everyone. Its symptoms can overlap with anxiety, depression, panic disorders, and other conditions. Some people don't recognize their symptoms as trauma-related at all. Others avoid talking about what happened, which is understandable, but it makes it harder to identify what's going on. There's no single lab test for PTSD. No simple scan that just lights up and says, "This is it." It often takes careful conversations, good screening, time, and trust. Treatment can be complex too. There isn't one perfect method that works for everyone. Some people benefit most from therapy, some from medication, many from a combination, and plenty need adjustments over time. Healing is personal. It can take trial and error. And let's not ignore the role of stigma, because stigma still keeps people away from help. People worry they'll be judged, misunderstood, labeled as unstable, or told they're being dramatic. That connects to another damaging idea, the belief that someone should just get over it, and that time alone will erase trauma. If only it worked that way. PTSD changes how the brain and body respond to fear, memory, and safety. The nervous system can get stuck in survival mode. And that's why triggers can show up years later and hit just as hard as they would have earlier. A trigger can be a smell, a sound, a place, a tone of voice, a certain kind of silence. Even a body sensation or an emotion can open the door to old fear. And suddenly you're not just remembering something. You're reliving it emotionally, physically, or both. So healing isn't just waiting. Healing is active. It's learning how to feel safe again, not just in the room you're in, but in your own body and mind. Another myth that needs to go is the idea that PTSD means you're weak. Often PTSD shows up in people who had to be strong for too long. People who adapted. People who endured. People who figured out how to survive when it wasn't optional. What looks like overreacting is frequently a brain that learned to stay alert because it had to. That hyper-awareness, that emotional guarding, that instinct to brace yourself isn't a character flaw. It's a protection system that hasn't powered down yet. And here's a big one. People assume that if you're functioning, you must be fine. But functioning isn't the same thing as healing. You can be productive and still be panicking inside. You can meet deadlines and still feel unsafe. You can take care of everyone else and feel completely depleted when you're alone. Some people become experts at hiding it. They blend in. They perform normal. They make sure no one sees the cost. And the world rewards that, which can make it even harder to admit you're struggling. So what does coping and healing actually look like? It starts with a simple but powerful shift, recognizing that what you're feeling has a reason. Your reactions aren't random. They're learned responses from a mind and body that were trying to protect you. From there, it helps to get curious about your triggers. Not to judge yourself for them, but to understand them. When you can name what sets you off, those intense experiences become less mysterious and, over time, more manageable. Grounding skills can also make a real difference. Bringing your attention back to the present moment. Controlled breathing. Noticing what you can see and hear around you. Feeling your feet on the floor. Checking in with your body. These are small actions, but they can help remind your nervous system, I'm safe right now. I'm here, not back there. Talking helps too, whether that means a trusted friend, a support group, or a licensed professional. Not everyone feels ready to talk right away, and that's okay. But healing usually gets easier when you're not carrying everything alone. Routine and stability matter as well. Trauma often steals predictability and safety. Creating structure, even gently, can help rebuild that sense of steadiness. And above all, grace is essential. Healing isn't quick. It isn't linear. Some weeks you feel like you're making progress, and then something knocks you back. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. If you're supporting someone with PTSD, your role is bigger than you might realize. You don't need perfect words. You don't need to fix them. In fact, trying to fix everything can make someone feel like they're a problem to be solved instead of a person to be supported. What helps most is consistency, patience, and real listening. Don't minimize their experience. Don't compare their trauma to someone else's. And if they set boundaries, especially around triggers, respect those boundaries even if you don't fully understand them. Safety is built through trust, and trust is built through steady, reliable presence. Encourage help when it's appropriate, but let them move at their own pace. Sometimes the most powerful support is simply being someone who stays. Someone who reminds them, through actions, that they're not alone. And if you're the person dealing with this silently, I want to speak directly to you for a moment. You might feel like no one can see what's happening in your head. You might be keeping it together in public and falling apart in private. You might wonder why certain things hit you so hard, or why you can't just move on like people think you should. But what you're feeling has a reason. Your mind and body learned to survive. They adapted to what you went through. That doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. And it means something happened that mattered. Something that left a mark. You're allowed to take your time. You're allowed to have heavy days and lighter days. You're allowed to feel tired, frustrated, even stuck. Healing doesn't follow a straight line, and it doesn't come with a deadline. You don't have to compare your timeline to anyone else's. There is real strength in continuing, even when the steps feel small. There is strength in not giving up on yourself, even on the days you feel unseen. Your effort matters. Your struggle is real, and it deserves compassion, not judgment. At the end of the day, PTSD isn't defined by a stereotype, a job title, or one specific kind of event. It's defined by what someone lived through and how it continues to affect them. The more we understand that, the more we can replace judgment with compassion and silence with honest conversation. And the thing I want you to hold on to most is this: healing is possible. It can take time. It can take support. It can take courage in ways you didn't expect. But it is possible. Growth can happen after the hardest experiences. Peace can return, even if it feels far away right now. Step by step, moment by moment, things can get better. Thank you for listening. Until next time.